assume that someone else is to blame for everything is the great risk of this moment.
If we're only looking for what divides us, that's what we're going to find.
Two people can be on different sides of an important political question and still find precious common humanity.
So Disagree Better is working to change that narrative.
Our country was founded by people who disagreed on just about every issue.
And yet they still got the job done, just like we do.
Disagree Better is not just about being nice to each other. And we do need to be nice to each other, and I encourage more of that. But this is politics, and we are trying to get things done.
We are stuck with each other, like it or not. This is our society, and we are going to work together to do great things.
We want American culture to be a culture of respect and dignity, to be a true marketplace of competing ideas.
I'm not telling anybody that they need to compromise their values, that they just need to give up, but I am telling you that you actually have to engage.
Where we can see value and merit in other positions and policy perspectives that allow us to have, at the end of the day, the best results possible for Americans.
We have a political message that is going viral.
In an arena that is often so divisive, it offers a glimmer of hope.
We disagree passionately on lots of issues, but we're friends, and we respect each other.
We try to work together and actually solve the problems our constituents face.
Because we know that Stanford has shown that our ads impact culture, we are working to scale that impact significantly.
And who knows, in the end, we might not be as far apart as we thought.
Governor, don't mind if I do.
Having leaders model it and having people support those leaders for modeling it provides an incentive for leaders to behave better.
To disagree is human, but to disagree better is American.
One measurable change I would make in my community is
not taking a no for an answer,
Reaching out, applying for programs,
advocating effortlessly.
I'm currently working on a mental health chatbot for the youth, which is going to give healthcare access to those who cannot afford it. When my city was being attacked and threatened, I just realized that I could not let that happen.
I'd like to see young people lead in all areas of life.
Talking to people and making connections
Gives me hope of what I can do and young leaders to come after me.
I'm very thankful that this is a youth-based event.
This summit has actually given us resources and tools to go out and do good in your community.
Another computer monitor stand that I put the monitor on, clothes, shoes, all in that bag. Yeah. Yeah. Is that the one where? No. Oh, I've seen that one, but no. Yeah, I think that's it. Yeah, like you can like. Yeah. Was it? Yeah, maybe that was it. That looked cool.
I mean, I'm not religious, but I do like it.
too. Thanks for coming. Good, how are you? Yeah?
Did anyone join you or did you have solitude?
I had solitude. Yeah.
Yeah, this is I ran a Go Ahead happy hour.
Oh, no way. So are you from Philly?
No, we're from all over. I live in Tennessee.
Oh, no way.
Montana, California.
Oh, wow. I don't know each other.
Through our organization, well, we find innovators and creatives and leaders from all different industries, and we bring them together and collaborate on solving problems and supporting each other.
Hello, hello. We are going to get started. Please take your seats.
What about you?
Take your seats.
What brings you here?
Making a dramatic shift from
If you're in the lobby, come on in. The water's warm. Okay. Welcome to the Braver Angels 2026 National Convention. At Temple University in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, on the 250th anniversary of the founding of this country and the 10th anniversary of Braver Angels. I'm happy to report that as of 2 minutes ago, we have 881 delegates with us at this convention, coming from not just across the country, but some people from across the globe to be here to build together. My name is Mark Metzger. I'm the convention director here at Braver Angels. And it is my pleasure to introduce you to our two co-chairs this year of our convention, Jim Robb and Diego Sanchez. Jim Robb is Vice President of Alliances at Numbers USA, the largest member immigration group in America. The group supports modernized, more sensible immigration, which it defines as no illegal immigration and lower immigration levels geared towards protecting American workers. Jim helped found Numbers USA 30 years ago, where he pioneered web-based political activism tools which group members have used to send 50 million messages to Congress. He is especially interested in Hispanic political development in the US, having authored Political Migrants, Hispanic Voters on the Move, the first book to trace the shift of Hispanic voters into the Republican Party. A member of Braver Angels' Citizens Commission on Immigration leadership team, Jim frequently speaks with fellow convention co-chair Diego Sanchez. They will appear together at the University of California, Irvine in early May and the University of North Carolina at Chapel Hill this September. And next we have Diego Sanchez. Diego Sanchez is the Vice President of Policy and Strategy at the President's Alliance on Higher Education and Immigration, where he leads the organization's policy team and legislative and administrative agenda. An immigration lawyer and policy strategist with over 15 years of experience, he works at the intersection of higher education, public policy, and government relations, helping college and university leaders navigate policy developments affecting students, campuses, and communities. He is also a non-resident fellow at Cornell University's Center on Global Democracy. Before joining the President's Alliance, Diego directed the federal immigration portfolio at the Southern Poverty Law Center. Across his career, he has led strategy, coalition engagement, and policy advocacy at the local, state, and national levels. His areas of expertise include higher education and immigration policy, tuition equity, and college access for immigrant students and dreamers, and engagement with policymakers, campus leaders, and partner organizations. Diego serves on the leadership team of the Citizens Commission on Immigration, an initiative of Braver Angels dedicated to finding durable areas of common ground on immigration policy and advancing civil discourse across political differences. He holds a JD and a bachelor's degrees in psychology and philosophy from St. Thomas University in Miami, Florida. His commitment to expanding educational opportunity for immigrant students is deeply personal, shaped by his own journey as an undocumented college student and a former DACA recipient. Jim and Diego Sanchez, our two co-chairs. And with that, I'm going to pass it off to Jim and Diego, who are going to run the show here for the next couple of days. Give them a warm round of applause.
Thank you, Mark. Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the Braver Angels 2026 National Convention. It's a joy to see this room jammed full of delegates, volunteers, leaders, friends, and fellow citizens from around the country. Some of you have been part of Braver Angels since the beginning, 10 years ago, but some of you are here at a convention for the very first time. Can I just ask those who this is their first convention to come to in person, please stand up.
Wow.
That's a growing movement. Thank you. Some of you come from red communities, some from blue communities, and some from places that don't fit neatly into either category. But tonight, we begin together. The theme of this opening plenary is inheritance and responsibility. Now, that feels right for this moment. We are gathered not simply for a conference, but for a civic gathering. A chance to remember what has been handed down to us and ask what we are now called to do with it. Nearly 250 years ago, well, almost exactly 250 years ago, not far from here, people who disagreed about many things made a pledge to build something together. They risked reputation, comfort, security, and in many cases, their lives. This is one early expression of courageous citizenship. People choosing to bind themselves into a shared future, even across real differences. Tonight, we inherit not only their words, but their responsibility. And throughout this convention, we will ask what it means to renew that responsibility in our own time. So I invite you not only to attend sessions, but to meet one another. Find someone you don't already know. Listen for the story behind the opinion. Let yourself be challenged. Let yourself be encouraged. Our hope is that you leave this convention not only inspired, but more connected, more equipped, and more courageous. Diego, I'm honored to serve with you, my friend, and I'd love to invite you to share what this theme means to you.
Thank you, Jim. Hi, everyone. It's great to be with you. Jim, it's an honor to be the co-chair of this year. Thank you to Mari, to David, to all the Braver Angels team for asking us to co-chair. It's really an honor to do that. And to really set an example of what are the possibilities that we can do when we just get to meet each other where we're at, get to meet each other honestly, learn to disagree better. That's something that's one of my lessons from the work that we've been doing. And so, as Jim mentioned, for me, this theme, inheritance and responsibility, is deeply personal. I came to the United States from Argentina as a child when I was 9. For many years, 14 to be exact, I lived in this country without legal status. Undocumented, unauthorized, illegally, call it whatever you want. Later, at age 23, I received a DACA, Deferred Action for Childhood Arrivals. And eventually I became a US citizen about 5 years ago. Thank you. Thank you so much. And for me, that is part of what citizenship means too. It's not just having legal status, but taking responsibility for how we talk to one another, how we live with our differences, and how we try to move our country forward. This is my story, but I know that many of you come to this gathering with very different stories, very different politics, very different faiths, religions, different frustrations, and different hopes for the country. That is exactly what this gathering matters. Hope does not mean pretending our divisions are not real. Hope does not mean avoiding hard questions or smoothing over real disagreement. Hope means believing that we are still capable of meeting one another with honesty, humility, and courage. And this weekend, we get to practice that, not perform it, practice it. We get to meet people we might not otherwise meet. We get to listen longer than we normally would. We get to speak honestly without giving up on one another. So as we begin, I invite each of you to ask yourselves, what have we inherited? What are we responsible for now? And who in this room might I need to meet in order to answer that question more faithfully? Thank you. Jim?
Thank you, Diego. Again, the theme of this opening plenary is inheritance and responsibility. This convention is now in session.
In Congress, July 4, 1776, a declaration by the representatives of the United States of America in General Congress assembled. When, in the course of human events, it becomes necessary for one people to dissolve the political bands which have connected them with another, and to assume among the powers of the earth the separate and equal station to which the laws of nature and of nature's God entitle them, a decent respect to the opinions of mankind requires that they should declare the causes which impel them to the separation. We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal, that they are endowed by their Creator with certain unalienable rights, that among these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, that to secure these rights, governments are instituted among men, deriving their just powers from the consent of the governed, that whenever any form of government becomes destructive of these ends, it is the right of the people to alter or abolish it, and to institute new government, laying its foundation on such principles and organizing its powers in such form as to them shall seem most likely to affect their safety and happiness. Prudence indeed will dictate that government long established should not be changed for light and transient causes, and accordingly all experience hath shown that mankind are more disposed to suffer while evils are sufferable than to right themselves by abolishing the forms to which they are accustomed. But when a long train of abuses and usurpations, pursuing invariably the same object, evinces a design to reduce them under absolute despotism, it is their right, it is their duty to throw off such government and to provide new guards for their future security. Such has been the patient sufferance of the colonies, and such is now the necessity which constrains them to alter their former system of government. The history of the present King of Great Britain is a history of repeated injuries and usurpations, all having in direct object the establishment of an absolute tyranny over these states. To prove this, let facts be submitted to a candid world. He has refused his assent to laws the most wholesome and necessary for the public good. He has forbidden his governors to pass laws of immediate and pressing importance unless suspended in their operation till his assent should be obtained, and when so suspended, he has utterly neglected to attend to them. He has refused to pass other laws for the accommodation of large districts of people, unless those people would relinquish the right of representation in the legislature, a right inestimable to them and formidable to tyrants only. He has called together legislative bodies at places unusual, uncomfortable, and distant from the depository of their public records, for the sole purpose of fatiguing them into compliance with his measures. He has dissolved representative houses repeatedly for opposing with manly firmness his invasions on the rights of the people. He has refused for a long time after such dissolutions to cause others to be elected, whereby the legislative powers, incapable of annihilation, have returned to the people at large for their exercise, the state remaining in the meantime exposed to all the dangers of invasion from without and convulsions within. He has endeavored to prevent the population of these states, for that purpose obstructing the laws for naturalization of foreigners, and refusing to pass other laws to encourage their migrations hither, and raising the conditions of new appropriations of lands. He has obstructed the administration of justice by refusing his assent to laws for establishing judiciary powers. He has made judges dependent on his will alone for their tenure and the amount of payment of their salaries. He has erected a multitude of new offices and sent hither swarms of officers to harass our people and eat out their substance. He has kept among us, in time of peace, standing armies without the consent of our legislatures. He has affected to render the military independent of and superior to the civil power. He has combined with others to subject us to a jurisdiction foreign to our Constitution and unacknowledged by our laws, giving his assent to their acts of pretended legislation, acts for quartering large bodies of troops among us, acts for protecting them by mock trial from punishment for any murders they should commit on the inhabitants of these states, for cutting off our trade with all parts of the world, for imposing taxes on us without our consent, for depriving us in many cases of the benefits of trial by jury, for transporting us beyond seas to be tried for pretended offenses, for abolishing the free system of English laws in a neighboring province, establishing therein an arbitrary government, and enlarging its boundaries so as to render it at once an example and a fit instrument for introducing the same absolute rule into these colonies. Acts for taking away our charters, abolishing our most valuable laws, and altering fundamentally the forms of our governments, for suspending our own legislatures and declaring themselves invested with power to legislate for us in all cases whatsoever. He has abdicated government here by declaring us out of his protection and waging war against us. He has plundered our seas, ravaged our coasts, burnt our towns, and destroyed the lives of our people. He is at this time transporting large armies of foreign mercenaries to complete the works of death, desolation, and tyranny already begun with circumstances of cruelty and perfidy scarcely paralleled in the most barbarous ages and totally unworthy the head of a civilized nation. He has constrained our fellow citizens, taken captive on the high seas, compelling them to bear arms against their own country, to become the executioners of their friends and brethren, or to fall themselves by their hands. He has excited domestic insurrections among us and has endeavored to bring upon the inhabitants of our frontiers, the merciless Indian savages whose known rule of warfare is an undistinguished destruction of all ages, sexes, and conditions. In every stage of these oppressions, we have petitioned for redress in the most humble terms. Our repeated petitions have been answered only by repeated injury. A prince whose character is thus marked by every act which may define a tyrant is unfit to be the ruler of a free people. Nor have we been wanting in attentions to our British brethren. We have warned them from time to time of attempts by their legislature to extend an unwarrantable jurisdiction over us. We have reminded them of the circumstances of our emigration and settlement here. We have appealed to their native justice and magnanimity. We have conjured them by the ties of our common kindred to disavow these usurpations, which would inevitably interrupt our connection and correspondence. They too have been deaf to the voice of justice and consanguinity. We must, therefore, acquiesce in the necessity which denounces our separation and hold them as we hold the rest of mankind, enemies in war, in peace, friends. We, therefore, the representatives of the United States in General Congress assembled, appealing to the Supreme Judge of the world for the rectitude of our intentions, do in the name and by the authority of the good people of these colonies solemnly publish and declare that these united colonies are and of right ought to be free and independent states, that they are absolved of all allegiance to the British Crown, and that all political connection between them and the state of Great Britain is and ought to be totally dissolved, and that as free and independent states, they have full power to levy war, conclude peace, contract alliances, establish commerce, and to do all other acts and things which independent states may of right do. And for the support of this declaration, with a firm reliance on the protection of divine providence, we mutually pledge to each other our lives, our fortunes, and our sacred honor.
Approved on July 4th, 1776, just down the road a bit. Signed on August 2nd, 1776, 250 years ago. But did you hear that last line? For the support of this declaration with a firm reliance on the protection of divine providence, we mutually pledge to each other our lives, our fortunes, and our sacred honor. These were sober, property, successful, and reasoned men. They were people, they were lawyers, merchants, and farmers. They knew that defeat meant certain death. And yet they quietly witnessed with their names on this document. And they actually withheld their names until January 1777 for public share, until the battlefield and the victories in Trenton and Princeton gave them the confidence to do so. Those words, lives, fortunes, and sacred honor, when reflected upon at the time in which they were said and written, run deep. You see, in the very document that they were declaring to the world the independence, and then 11, 12 years later to form a more perfect union, in that very document, they were acknowledging the necessity of the interdependence required for this new nation to emerge, to form, to grow, and to thrive. And that happened 250 years ago, here. And everything we enjoy in this country today and love about this country is enabled because of those principles and that effort and that courage that was put forth. Now, that pledge is under strain in our time. I don't think it would take much for me to talk with each of you to be convinced that it is. And we don't often reflect upon that line in the Declaration of Independence. There are forces tearing apart the social fabric of society, dividing families, breaking friendships, and becoming a barrier for being in a sense of community one with another. But what do those words mean? What do they mean today? And what's our responsibility? What do we need to do with them? Welcome, Braver Angels. My name is Maury Giles. I'm honored to be able to serve you as a CEO of Braver Angels. Welcome to Philadelphia. How could we be anywhere else than Philadelphia today, no? Welcome to Temple University. We'll have a time to talk about some interesting stories of what happened here in this building and in this campus and how it parallels what we're on here. But welcome to 1776, 2026, a pledge renewed. Now, I asked someone who I've come to respect and know, but I always knew who he was, but didn't get to know him. But to dive a little more deeply into this pledge, he couldn't be with us here today, but retired General Stan McChrystal. Let's listen to what he had to say about this to you today.
Hi, I'm Stan McChrystal, and let me say hello and thank you to you, the Braver Angels. You're 1,000 Americans, equal numbers across the political spectrum, that have gathered together to do something worth honoring. I regret that I can't be there in person with you. We often think of the Declaration of Independence, and we focus on the phrase, life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. But we often forget the final sentence that says we mutually pledge to each other our lives, our fortune, and our sacred honor. The signers didn't pledge only to a cause, they pledged to one another. And that pledge made everything that followed possible. The first sentence talks about our rights. The forgotten sentence speaks of our obligations. The freedoms we cherish are self-evident, but they're not self-executing. Rights without the pledge are an inheritance we'll spin down. The founders understood that this experiment would only work if citizens were willing to bind themselves to each other across differences, across disagreement, across risk. The choice is in front of us: easy citizenship or courageous citizenship. I believe we've drifted into what I'd call easy citizenship. A citizenship that asks little or nothing of most of us and everything of a few. But easy citizenship is a luxury this country can no longer afford. What this moment requires is the opposite, what Braver Angels call courageous citizenship. And courageous citizenship is a choice. Character is always a choice. It's the discipline to live to what you say you believe, especially when it would be easier to retreat to your own side. That choice, made by ordinary citizens over and over is what renews the pledge. To every brave angel in Philadelphia, you've already made that choice. You showed up. You crossed the aisle. You sat down with someone you disagree with and stayed in the room to build together. This is not a small thing. This is the work the founders were counting on. The country needs more of you, and the country needs you to keep going. 250 years ago, 56 Americans pledged their lives, their fortune, and their sacred honor to each other. In 2026, our pledge looks different, but the spirit is the same. Pledge to stay engaged. Pledge to disagree without contempt. Pledge to build together. Braver angels, thank you for renewing that pledge. Keep going. The country is watching. Thank you.
Thank you, General McChrystal. Now, thank you to each one of you. You live this in your life. I know we're preaching to the choir with what he just said. The healing, though, that we each need in our lives in different ways and in the country is real. And the opportunity to own that and move forward with it is ours. Thank you for being here. Now, how many of you, if you'd please stand up if this is your very first convention at Braver Angels, please stand up. Stand up for us. Let's give a big round of applause to our first timers here. Thank you for making that here. Now, I'd like everybody else to stand up, because that means you've been here more than once. And just for fun, if this is your third time or more, stay standing. If it's your third time or more, stay standing. If it's your fourth time or more, stay standing. If it's your fifth or more Braver Angels convention, start dancing. David, Bill, John. Thank you so much for being here. The energy, this is the thing that got me so convinced that I needed to be here every time we did this when I first came to Gettysburg and when I became inspired. But to learn more about the Declaration and how it applies to our lives today, I want to, and what we're going to be able to practice this weekend, I want to introduce historian, tour guide, and fellow Braver Angel that if you've been to Gettysburg, you've met him before, Bob Steenstra.
Josh gonna have a slide up there? There we go. Thank you, Braver Angels. You need that? I do, thank you. I bring you greetings from Gettysburg, where I met many of you giving you bus tours of the battlefield 3 years ago. It was fitting and proper that we should meet at Gettysburg in 2023 because the awful battle there 80 years earlier reminded us of the consequences of failure at our current task. And oh yeah, there was that little speech Lincoln gave there reminding us of our unfinished work. But it is even more appropriate that this year we convene in this city. For the light of the Gettysburg Address was only that of a reflection of that fire that was kindled 10 years ago, next week, right here in Philadelphia. I unashamedly admit that for me, like most Americans, the Declaration has assumed the role of our nation's moral compass. The fact that it is so regarded today, considering That was not the main reason for the Declaration, just adds to its power. It is helpful to remember that the Declaration was a political announcement that we were now an independent nation. The bulk of the Declaration was very much like press releases from the government today, although the news was very consequential. What made the Declaration a beacon of light to the world was its preamble. We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal, that they are endowed by their Creator with certain unalienable rights, that among these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, that to secure these rights, governments are instituted among men, deriving their just powers from the consent of the governed. Let's break down and savor these words. We hold these truths to be self-evident. Okay, don't press the laser. All right, we hold these truths to be self-evident. Self-evident truths are known as axioms. Axioms are accepted as true without the need of proof or demonstration. What truths are self-evident? Several are listed, but the first and most foundational is all men are created equal. The Declaration is a political document concerned with people and their relationship to government. Jefferson meant that no man was born with natural rights to rule over another. But it goes even deeper. Every human being has equal value, and therefore a moral right to be treated equally. This is the foundational axiom, the deeper truth which traces its origin to creation. It found expression in another ancient universal truth which probably dates from the dawn of humanity and is so ubiquitous that every major religion teaches it. This is how the signers of the Declaration would have heard it. Whatsoever ye would that men should do to you, do ye even so to them. Today we call it the Golden Rule. Hinduism states it. One should never do that to another which one regards as injurious to one's own self. You can see for yourself on this slide how the Golden Rule has been expressed throughout the world. We believe that all people should be treated equally because we believe that all people are created equal. The next self-evident truth secures all the truths under the authority of God, that they are endowed by their Creator with certain unalienable rights. These rights come not from any human government, but rather they are given by God. Inherent to being human. Unlike alienable rights, such as property rights, which could be bought or sold, they cannot rightfully be taken away by any other human or government. The next words, that among these are, implies other rights. But these three, the most important, are listed: life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. Life is the easiest to understand. Implied is simply the right to exist. Liberty, in this context, contained the element of being free from a tyrannical ruler's arbitrary actions which deprived one of their rights, especially the right to make choices in the pursuit of happiness, which means making decisions necessary for survival. But the actions we take in pursuing happiness or survival might infringe on the rights of others. It is because of this inevitable overlap of conflicting rights that government is needed. The Declaration continues that to secure these rights, governments are instituted among men, deriving their just powers from the consent of the governed. The purpose of the government? To secure, protect the people's rights. One might say it's government for the people. Who makes up the government? Well, it says among men or people. One might define it as government by the people. Its source of authority, Jefferson makes it clear that the authority comes from a social contract between the people and the government they are creating by inserting the words, deriving their just powers from the consent of the governed. One might call it government of the people. Though the Continental Congress deleted many of Jefferson's original words, they left those precious words, all men are created equal, in the preamble. How powerful were those words? Just 4 years later, Pennsylvania became the first of the original 13 states to abolish slavery. Fourscore years later, slavery threatened the very existence of the government created by the Declaration. And again, in Pennsylvania, the light of the Declaration was manifested in those 10 sentences uttered by Abraham Lincoln. And they became the moral compass of the Second American Revolution. From start to finish, the living, beating heart of the Gettysburg Address was the Declaration of Independence. The opening words, 77 years ago, of course referred to 1776. Our fathers were the founding fathers, dedicated to the proposition that all men are created equal, a direct quote from the Declaration. And the concluding words, that government of the people, by the people, for the people shall not perish, also derived from the preamble. How important was the Declaration of Independence to Abraham Lincoln? In January of 1861, prompted by the proverb, a word fitly spoken is like apples of gold in pictures of silver, he wrote down some thoughts on a piece of paper. The president-elect thought about the prosperity realized under the Constitution and the Union, and he wrote that it is not the result of accident. It has a philosophical cause, entwining itself more closely about the human heart. That something is the principle of liberty to all. The expression of that principle in our Declaration of Independence was most happy and fortunate. The assertion of that principle at that time was the word fitly spoken, which has proved an apple of gold to us. The Union and the Constitution are the picture of silver, consequently framed around it. The picture was made not to conceal or destroy the apple, but to adorn and preserve it. The picture was made for the apple, not the apple for the picture. In his mind, he might have pictured something like this: a priceless work of art, an apple of gold, the Declaration of Independence, surrounded by, protected by, adorned by a valuable picture of silver, the Constitution. How important was the Declaration of Independence to Abraham Lincoln? The last city citizen Lincoln slept in before going to Washington to be inaugurated as President Lincoln was this city of brotherly love. On February 22nd, 1861, Lincoln visited Independence Hall. At that place where the Declaration of Independence had been crafted, he made a few remarks. He said, "I have never had a political feeling that did not spring from the sentiments embodied in the Declaration of Independence, giving liberty not alone to the people of this country, but hope to the world for all future time. This is the sentiment embodied in that Declaration of Independence. I have said nothing but what I am willing to live by, and in the pleasure of Almighty God, die by." Back then, like now, political violence was real. Of necessity, the next day, Abraham Lincoln entered the Capitol incognito. 4 years later, he exited the Capitol in a casket. Those were dark and violent times. 80 years earlier, here in Philadelphia, during the Revolution, times were dark and violent. 80 years after the Civil War, when fascism threatened to extinguish the belief that all men are created equal, times were dark and violent. And now, 80 years after World War II, times are dark and, well, I don't have to tell you. That's what we're here for tonight. But there is hope. 100 years after the Gettysburg Address, Martin Luther King Jr., who knew of darkness and violence, stood in front of the Lincoln Memorial, and like Lincoln, quoted the 5 words that made America great. He said, "I say to you today, my friends, even though we face the difficulties of today and tomorrow, I still have a dream. It is a dream deeply rooted in the American dream. I have a dream that one day this nation will rise up and live out the true meaning of its creed. We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal." The cornerstone of King's dream was the faith in that self-evident truth of those words in the Declaration, that they could not be suppressed. Donald Kagan was correct when he claimed that democracy is one of the rarest, most delicate and fragile flowers in the jungle of human existence. But the roots of that delicate and fragile flower are tenacious. The flower can be smothered. It can be pulled out. It can be burned. But its roots go down deep, all the way to the soil from which all were created equal. And so it will always spring up again. When I give presentations about the Declaration and Lincoln's speech on that hallowed ground in Gettysburg, I always end by reciting the address. Every single time, I am revitalized in my task by the fact that the crowd is moved to silence by the power of those words. Most of those who stay to speak with me afterward, some with MAGA hats and others wearing Kamala Harris t-shirts, agree on the authority of those words. Braver angels, take heart. Americans still have more values in common than fears that divide. Finally, I want to share with you one more photograph from Gettysburg. I see this every day at work, and it gives me inspiration and encouragement to do my task, my part in the unfinished work. And I hope it does the same for you. Good news, the flame is still burning atop the peace light. That flame, first lit by Civil War veterans 80 years ago, symbolizes their prayer for peace eternal in a nation united. And isn't that the work of braver angels? Civil War soldiers courageously completed their task by putting their bodies in the path of bullets. Is that not courageous citizenship? But the work is still unfinished, and it's our turn now. The work was not finished when, in his last speech, Martin Luther King Jr. said he had no fear of any man because he had been to the mountaintop and seen the promised land. Like any man, I would like to live, he said, but he was assassinated the next day. Was that not courageous citizenship? but the work is still unfinished, and it is our turn now. The Founding Fathers pledged their lives, their fortunes, and their sacred honor. Is that not courageous citizenship? But the work is unfinished, and it's our turn now. Abraham Lincoln, whose hope for Americans to be touched by the better angels of their nature inspired our original name, and whose assassination proved just how braver we all must become. Was he not in life and in death an example of courageous citizenship? But the work is unfinished, and it's our turn now. 10 years ago, our fathers brought forth in this city a new nation, conceived in liberty and dedicated to the proposition that all people are created equal. Now we are involved in a great civic struggle, testing whether that nation can continue to endure. We are met in the great city which gave birth to that nation. We have come to commit ourselves to the same work which those who here crafted the Declaration pledged to it their lives, their fortunes, and their sacred honor. The world will little note nor long remember what we say here, but it can never forget what they did here. It is for us, the living, rather, to be dedicated here to the unfinished work, which they who began it so nobly advanced. It's rather for us to be dedicated here to the great task remaining before us, that from these honored founders we take increased devotion to that cause for which they pledged their lives in a last full measure of devotion. That we here highly resolve that those who have struggled these past 250 years for these ideals shall not have died in vain. That this nation, under God, shall have a new birth of freedom, and that government of the people, by the people, for the people shall not perish from the earth. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Bob. Thank you for that reminder. Now, we're in Philadelphia, and I want to introduce two people that I am glad to be able to call my friends. And that is, they're the leaders of two of the most interesting, profound, and, in my opinion, the experience you have visiting, something that will change your life when you engage in that. And that is the National Constitution Center and the Museum of the American Revolution. So we've got Vince Stango and Scott Stevenson. Please come join me. And by the way, each one of you, when you take your, I don't have my lanyard. Each one of you, you go there this weekend, you get in free to both of these, courtesy of these gentlemen. There we go. You know, it strikes me that your two institutions reflect upon and share a story of two different types of courage. The American Revolution.
That's the Golden Apple Museum.
Right there.
Silver over here.
Silver frame. Silver. Good. Like how we set that up perfectly right from the beginning.
How much did Scott pay you to be the Golden Apple?
Not enough. And Mitch, the Constitution, the courage to bring together unity and try to turn this into a nation. Tell us, let's start with you, Scott, at the Museum of American Revolution. When people visit there, people who here want to work to make courageous citizenship the honored norm, what would you want them to take away from the experiences there that they can apply to today by learning from the past.
Sure, thank you. So, curious, how many of you have been to the Museum of the American Revolution already? Good. I hope all those hands go up by the end of the convening here. So, when we were conceiving the museum, we just are about to celebrate our 10th anniversary next year. So we're just chasing braver angels.
We'll
here.
share some of the cake by the end of the year.
Very good, yeah. But the planning went back much farther. So I actually was the third employee 19 years ago. So we spent 10 years planning the museum, opened 9 years ago. And one of the first questions was like, what do we mean when we say the American Revolution? It seems like a simple question, but even the founders did not agree when they used the phrase the American Revolution. John Adams famously wrote to a publisher in 1818, the American Revolution happened before the war. It was a change in the hearts and minds of the people. Now, Adams was always keen on making sure that John Adams was at the center of the story, and then New England was, the frame around him. We tend to like another founder, Benjamin Rush, a Philadelphian, Dr. Benjamin Rush, who wrote on the eve of the Constitutional Convention.
Rush fans.
On the eve of the Constitutional Convention, he said that the American War, meaning the Revolutionary War, is over. But this is not the case with the American Revolution. Only the first act of the great drama is over. And so when we were constructing the concepts for the exhibits, you can't tell all the stories. People are still very upset when their ancestor or their favorite battle is not represented or something like that. So what we decided to do is, first of all, start with 4 questions that you're hit right when you first walk in the galleries. How did people become revolutionaries? How did the revolution survive its darkest hour? What was revolutionary about the war? What kind of nation did the revolution create? And then introduce you to people and communities in predicaments. Try to recapture some of the uncertainty of the time, people disagreeing. We think the Civil War happened in the 1860s. It happened in the 1770s first. And then very importantly at the end of the exhibition, and if you only have sort of a half an hour to see the museum, do 2 things. See George Washington's tent, because it'll make you cry. And go to actually the very end of the exhibition, because it's where the core story that takes you up to the sort of election of 1800, the first peaceful transition of power happens. And we then take you to a wall of photographs of people who were alive during the Revolutionary War and lived into the age of photography. And you're staring at the faces of people who were witnesses, and then you see yourself reflected in a wall of mirrors with the simple phrase, "Meet the future of the American Revolution." So for us, it's not about doing better on a multiple choice, AP history exam. That would be good. And I am a historian, so I want you to know
no test.
When Lexington and Concord happened and when the Constitutional Convention happened. But really the most important thing is for you to feel an empathetic connection to people who you have something in common with, because we all have to make difficult choices. We all have to compromise with people. And that's really the
And if you had to put it in just a couple of 3 to 5 words, what's the type of courage that they will feel inspired by there?
It's the courage to start with listening.
Okay. Start with listening. Being able to sound familiar. I think we work on that. Thank you. Now, Vince, it's interesting with the 2 of you that he was around from the beginning at at the Museum of American Revolution. You've been around for a while at the National Constitution Center as well.
You got me beat.
I know I don't look that old, but I have been around for 27 years, and our museum's been open for 23, so you do the math.
And what was the first position you had?
I started as the assistant to the CEO, and now I am the CEO. So it's
so there you go.
A full circle journey.
Where's Marissa? Where's Marissa? Okay, there you go. Okay,
this is your path.
Inside joke. Okay, what would you expect and want people when they come to the National Constitution Center? What's the kind of courage that they're going to see there? And what would you want them to take away?
It's so interesting because when we talked about this panel discussion the other day and talked about courageous citizenship, there was incredible courage. It's been discussed throughout the evening so far that took place in 1776 to break away from the British Empire, and then a different kind of courage to come together 11 years later to create the form of government that became the U.S. Constitution. And it's interesting in this 250th anniversary year. The National Constitution Center opened in 2003, but the idea for it came out of the bicentennial of the Constitution in 1987. 1988, Ronald Reagan signed into law the Constitution Heritage Act, which established a nonpartisan center on Independence Mall in Philadelphia, and then it took all the way till 2003 to figure out what
There's a
the
theme here.
Constitution Center would be.
In Philly, we bake our potatoes twice. We don't microwave them.
That's right. But at the National Constitution Center, and how many of you have visited there so far? A few. All right. Well, we'll hopefully get a few more by the end of the weekend. We have a 17-minute live theatrical performance called Freedom Rising, and the late Justice Sandra Day O'Connor called it the greatest 17-minute civics lesson in America. And the show starts with the words, "We the people," and it ends with a really important question. What will you do with freedom? And so it's that call to action. How are we going to take the mantle of citizenship? And the Constitution is something we inherited, but it's something we have to work on together to pass on to the next generation. And I think that's when you experience the exhibits and the programs of the Constitution Center, just like at Scott's Place, you'll come away thinking about not just your rights as an American, but hopefully your responsibilities as well.
I love that. Yes, good applause for that. I love these two places. I could stay the whole time, but you all want to hang out with you, but it just shows you my commitment to being here because I would hang out there forever. Quick, kind of lightning round question on a few things about before. The most unexpected experience that people have when they show up there, that you find that they weren't expecting that or they didn't know that? What do you find there? And I want you to tell me the same thing.
It's actually people, when they see this, referenced Washington's war tent, so that it's a theatrical experience in the museum, actually made by the same filmmaker that made Freedom Rising at the Constitution Center. I hired Donna Lawrence because she moves them to tears at the NCC, and I said, I knew that this was the right filmmaker.
You also did a little Alfred Hitchcock at the end of that movie.
It's true. I am the shadow of George Washington at the end.
If you look at the shadow of George Washington, it's Scott.
I was the right height.
Yeah.
He was the right height. I think a lot of people go in and think, I'm going to see this tent. But actually, we use the tent as a metaphor for the Republic. The story is not just about the Revolutionary War, it's about the survival of that object through American history. If any of you know the film The Red Violin, that was shamelessly I stole the idea of an object sort of moving through time, and the tent becomes a kind of metaphor for the Republic.
And it's not a replica.
No, it's the real thing. It is the first Oval Office. And so the surprise is people I literally witnessed 5th grade boys to Battle of the Bulge veterans come out of there with tears in their eyes, really profoundly moved by the experience.
What about in the National Constitution Center?
Yeah, so I talked about Freedom Rising, and that's just an emotional, to get you started experience at the center. But there's a room called Signers Hall, and in that room you'll find 39 life-size statues of the signers of the Constitution and the 3 statues of the dissenters. And I think people walk in that room and really find themselves in that moment of the signing and ask questions like, oh, I didn't realize they were so short. Or I didn't realize they were so young. And so I think to understand that these founders were not larger than life. They were ordinary men who came together in extraordinary times to do something greater than themselves. When you see it in that way, it really clicks.
Can you explain the expression and the posture of Alexander Hamilton and his? It's so different than everybody else, and he's by himself.
He's just kind of he's an aristocrat. He's doing his own thing. He's kind of doing his own thing. He's not really looking at Washington or Madison, and he's got a little air about him.
A musical in the future.
He sure was.
There was a mind
I'm
that
sure that
worked.
someone will write a musical about me. Before we wrap up, what is the Constitution Center trying to accomplish in this country? Not just here with the center, but with your mission.
I think the idea of renewal has been talked about a few times, and we view this year, the semi-quincentennial, the jumping off point of a civic decade. All these 250th anniversaries are actually still coming up. I don't know how many people are going to celebrate the Articles of Confederation, but there'll be 250 next year. And by 2037, we'll be celebrating the 250th of the Constitution. And we want to educate people about the American ideals. The Constitution is more than just a document. It represents the American DNA. And we hope that we can spark a movement of civic renewal in this country.
What about with the museum? Yes, thank you.
Wow. So, samesies. I had an amazing encounter with a 12-year-old in the galleries that I think sums it up. I tell the story to our staff all the time. This was actually the summer we opened, so 2017. This probably would have been about September. And if you've been to the museum, or if you're about to go to the museum, you know we tear down the statue of King George like a couple of times through the story. And you may remember the summer of 2017, this was Charlottesville, right? And so tearing down statues was something that you were sort of could not miss in the news. So I'm talking to a family at the very last gallery. Actually, they were right in the Constitution area of the galleries. And so I asked this family, like, you know, what did you like about your visit? And this 12-year-old girl, usually the children will talk about an experience. They'll be like, I love the Liberty Tree, or I loved, you know, getting on the ship or something. But she started telling me a story about the Declaration of Independence. And I knew that she had watched a little film we have that dramatizes all the disagreement and argument. It was dangerous. They didn't know what they should do, you know. The biggest army in the world was going to attack them, but finally they were for liberty. And she starts telling me about the statue. She said, a group of people, 100 people, I think it was about 100 people, you know, started tearing down the statue. So I stopped her, thinking, I'm the educator and I'm going to help her connect to the present day. So I said, does that make you think about anything like, you know, you're seeing on the news? And she said, yes. But then she didn't go where I thought she was going to go. She said, it made me think that 100 years from now, someone's going to build a museum about my time. And that was a 12-year-old.
I love that.
And that's ultimately the most important thing, I think, about what we're doing, is to see that they are swimming in that stream of history and continuing what they started long ago.
We want you all to go experience this. Now, you knew that we saw that Ben Franklin showed up. He was put in one of our first political cartoons of Join or Die. There's a new version of that Ben Franklin
This is a little product placement available at the gift shop. Here we are. You want to hold that side and display it?
Unite or die. It is. Thank you, Vince. I know how busy you both are, and for joining us tonight. Thank you, Scott. Appreciate that. Make your way over there and have some fun in seeing that and learning about this. Now, we're here in Philadelphia. Did we mention that already? We're here in Philadelphia. Now, on June 25th in Philadelphia, there were other things that took place. 250 years ago, on June 25th, 76, at the time, there were 7 colonies that had committed to independence at that point. On June 25th, up to that point, North Carolina had come in April. We had Rhode Island in May and Virginia. And then in June, Connecticut, New Hampshire, Delaware, New Jersey. And at that point, the outcome wasn't in doubt any longer. But what happened here in Philadelphia on June 25th is that the host colony caught up. Did you realize the day we're starting our convention is the day that Pennsylvania, that they made their commitment to this pledge on this very day. Now, on this date also, on that day, they sent word to Congress that they were going to support it. Now, Then you fast forward. That's the part that we forget on this, is that it wasn't just one moment that happened, and then immediately all of a sudden we had this group together that they didn't have. I want to just say, if people think that 6-hour Common Ground workshops are long, come on. What was the first one? 3 days? Bill, David, the 2 days, 3 days? Okay. It took time. But then it's interesting to know also when you look forward, some of these colonies and these states, they hesitated and they took longer. And it required effort to come together. And ultimately, you had New York come around in July. Now, they came, even though they were reluctant. They made the effort to be a part of it. And the fighting, we often don't realize this. The fighting had already been going on for 14 months when this happened, when they signed this. And so when they made that pledge, they certainly knew what would happen if it failed. Now, as we think about this today, also on June 25th, in the storm that they came into, another thing happened was it came closer to the Constitution and getting that put together. Once again, this is our inheritance here, but what happened on June 25th when the Constitution was coming together? In this state also, it was a significant moment. It was an opportunity to be able to move forward and make a difference in moving the Constitution forward. And if you look at these dates and seeing the significance of them, they matter so much. And I found it so interesting that that so many things happened here on June 25th. Now, there's another friend of mine that I am privileged to call a friend, who is the governor of Utah, Governor Cox. Thank you. I want to be able to have him share a couple things. He couldn't be here. He spoke to us in Gettysburg. But I want to go ahead and move to his words that he shared with us tonight as to what this means and why it matters. Let's go ahead and listen to Governor Cox.
My friends, it is a privilege to address you today. I recall our last gathering in Gettysburg in 2023 when I first introduced the concept of disagree better. At the time, I was uncertain if this approach would resonate beyond our borders in Utah. You understood the necessity of this work before anyone else. For that, I remain deeply grateful. To the members, volunteers, and advocates assembled this week, those who have long championed this cause, thank you. Braver Angels and Disagree Better are united by a fundamental conviction. Loving our country cannot exist alongside disdain for our fellow citizens. Some misinterpret our mission as mere politeness. It is not. This work is not an exercise in soft-heartedness or civility for its own sake. It is an exercise in rigorous citizenship. Benjamin Franklin used to keep a little notebook where he tracked his own virtues: order, temperance, justice, humility. Not to achieve perfection, but to strive for incremental improvement each day. That is the standard we hold for ourselves. Courageous citizenship means steadfastly adhering to our principles without resorting to the disparagement of those with whom we disagree. It demands that we engage across divides to construct common ground rather than retreating into hostility. This kind of courage is the bedrock of self-government. 2.5 centuries ago, in the very city where you are gathered, our founders pledged their lives, their fortunes, and their sacred honor to a new American experiment. That is the pledge we are called to renew today. It is the challenging, essential work required of every generation tasked with preserving this democratic republic. Braver Angels, you are fulfilling the mandate our founders envisioned. Have faith in this work. Have faith in each other. And most importantly, have faith in America.
This is our opportunity. One quick question for you. Do you know on June 25th, 1788, what colony ratified the Constitution by only a 10-vote margin? Virginia. Why did that matter? Why did Virginia matter at that point? The biggest, the largest, the debates that were there, and the 89 to 79 vote was close. Now, through the rest of our convention here the next few days, we are here to renew that pledge. We are looking at history to see if we can learn from what they did so that we can be inspired to what we must do at this point. We have the choice to act instead of react. We have the choice to intentionally and faithfully connect across partisan and political difference, something that's a counterculture conversation of our day, something that is meaningful and the only path to be able to connect one with another. Through our breakouts, through the activities that we will do throughout the event and through the breakouts, you're going to be able to practice that. We have 171 different people speaking or engaging in this. Please, round of applause for the team that organized all that. Look for the things that will inspire you. Look for the things that will equip you to practice this thing we call courageous citizenship. Building relationships, healing relationships, being in community. And when you do that, we're going to do something at the end of each of our plenary sessions moving forward. If you have your booklet with you, open it up, you look to the back. There's a page that has some lines on it. When we say renew the pledge, we literally mean renewing that pledge, and there's two major things that we will do to make that real. One, each plenary session, we're going to ask you to jot down the things that inspire you that you will do differently. That's yours to own, to carry forward and move forward. Number two, before we even got here, a process was started to take a modern version of what that pledge is and create what it would be for us today. And on our last plenary session on Saturday, we will have the chance to ratify that and sign it. And you will see your literal signatures come up on the screen as you move forward to do that. And we will carry that forward beyond. We envision an America where courageous citizenship is the honored norm. The culture change we seek depends upon those in this country that will own their part in that system and connect one with another. Thank you for being a part of that, and thank you for being with us here at the convention today and throughout this weekend. Let's give yourselves a round of applause. Now, each session, we're also going to highlight volunteers who have done amazing things. These volunteers were nominated by those who have seen their acts of courageous citizenship in their lives and doing extraordinary things in this effort. And tonight, we start with someone who I love to be able to call my friend, and that's Abe Dana. Watch this video.
Abe Dana of Texas is one of the quiet backbone volunteers of Braver Angels. He's the go-to expert for any event that requires complex technical skills and troubleshooting. An example of Abe's impact was his leadership in helping Braver Angels, then Better Angels, transition to online programming during COVID. I still remember him reaching out and phoning me with his idea that we co-host online workshops, connecting the Blues in Seattle, the Reds in Dallas, during a time of fear and isolation. So whether managing breakout rooms for hundreds of participants, supporting hybrid events, or coordinating technology for large webinars, Abe's innovative and calm under pressure. He makes complicated events feel smooth and easy. And it's not only his technical ability, but the spirit in which he serves. He's humble, patient, selfless, dependable. He quietly supports others, sees the best in people, and gives generously of his time and talents. So through quiet servant leadership, extraordinary reliability, and deep care for others, Abe has become one of the most trusted and valued volunteers in Braver Angels and embodies courageous citizenship. Abe, I'm delighted to say that you are receiving a Braver Angels volunteer recognition. I believe you are truly one of the quiet backbone volunteers of this organization.
Well, Mary Beth, thank you for all that really lovely sentiment. I heard one of the founders say that at the pilot workshop, nobody had changed their political views, but they had changed the way they thought about each other. I thought that is an organization I want to check out. And to me, that is the essence, and it still is. I never anticipated, however, that when I joined, that this would become a second full-time job. Honestly, I am not that naturally altruistic. But in this organization, it becomes very easy to be inspired to do more than I ever thought I would. And in particular, I'm talking about you, Mary Beth, Casey Jorgensen, Paige Schwartz, Yvonne Boyd, and Brady Young. And when I see this team and I see how hard you work and how good you work and how long you work, all of you, I become inspired to do more than I would have thought I would be willing to do in order that my friends, whatever I can do to help them to have the best event they possibly can. So, thank you very much. It's been a privilege to be part of this.
No? Yes. Wow. Diego and I are so blown away by the reading of the Declaration and all these fine and inspirational talks that we're ready to join the fight of the just war against England. Where do we sign up? We can straighten that out later. Someone can tell us where to sign. Okay, we invite to the stage now the Braver Angels music team to lead us in the singing of America the Beautiful.
Good evening, everybody. My name is Ben Karen, and I am the co-director of Braver Angels Music, joined here by my friend and colleague.
I'm John Carroll. I'm the other co-lead of Braver Angels Music.
And while we're getting set up, we wanted to invite you into something. So here in Braver Angels, we really believe in the power of raising our voices together. And we have a little bit of a tradition now on our 5th convention. We now have a tradition of closing this opening plenary with a group sing-along of America the Beautiful. And so we want to invite you into that with us. We've invited our friends from across the political spectrum, across the Braver Angels universe, who are musical, to join us on stage. And we're going to do all 3 stanzas of America the Beautiful. Don't worry, we're going to put the lyrics up there for you. We want you to sing it along with us. We are also at the very end, after verse 3, we're going to repeat the second half of verse 1, which you'll see up there. At that moment, I'll invite you to stand and we'll sing the closing together. Does that sound good to everybody? Beautiful, thank you.
that sees beyond the years. Alabaster cities gleam, undimmed by human tears. America, America, build and find every flaw. Turn thy soul in self-control, thy liberty in law. Please stand. America, America, God shed His grace on thee, and crown thy good with brotherhood from sea to shining sea.
Thank you so much.
Yep. I think we're on. What a powerful way to begin the convention, huh? So, give it up. So I'm going to make this quick. I know we're almost at time, but tonight we were invited to think not only about the country that we received, but about the kinds of citizens that we are called to become. And tomorrow morning, we continue that journey. Tonight was about inheritance and responsibility. Tomorrow, we ask what responsibility each of us is willing to take. What begins in history now turns towards practice, in our conversations, in our relationships, and in the way that we show up with one another throughout the convention. So tonight, as we leave this room, I hope that you will carry that question with you. What is mine to do? Jim.
Thank you, Diego. And now just a few quick announcements before we adjourn. Thank you to those who participated and completed the service project this afternoon. And thank you to our volunteers and staff who helped make it happen, especially Wilkerson. We had so many delegates involved that we were able to make it to make all 2,000 kits in record time, 2 hours, 2,000 kits. These meal kits will soon be going to Philadelphians in need. And thank you to our many incredible volunteers who showed up early to help us run this convention. If you want to see where the Declaration of Independence was first drafted, we have shuttles going to Independence Square throughout the convention. You can visit the Museum of the American Revolution, the National Constitution Center, and take a guided tour of historic Philadelphia led by Temple's own Dialogue Institute. The shuttles will leave from 1300 Residence Hall, that's the name of it, and run from 10 tomorrow morning until, 10 tomorrow till 3 p.m. That's tomorrow and Saturday.
And after this, we'll have a whole slate of evening events for you tonight to enjoy. Here on stage, we'll have jazz, the blues, and Omni-American Dream, with a jazz band swinging in conversation with our speakers. You can head to the pub, grab a pint with Ben Franklin for an Ask Me Anything session. You can debate whether the founder's vision of America is now outdated. You can watch a special screening of the film Creed USA, a small Colorado town just like Braver Angels, and hear from filmmakers afterwards. And for our students, you can get to know one another with a speed friending session. For those of you who may have mobility issues and need a ride to get around campus, we have a small fleet of golf carts available to help. Staff will be driving those around campus, so let them know if you need help and hop on board. Breakfast, very important, will begin tomorrow at 7 a.m. at the J&H Dining Hall. We'll be back in here for our next plenary at 8:30 tomorrow morning. And also, if anyone lost their phone, we have a phone that was found in the dining commons. Please come to the Student Center, room 200D, if it might be yours. Jeff.
Well, thank you for being here tonight. Get some rest, greet someone on your way out, and we look forward to seeing you tomorrow morning. This plenary is now adjourned.
Would you mind, Dan? Jimmy, your brother, we'll see you again.
Yeah, I hope so. You're on, what's the app?
Everywhere.
Viva?
Yeah.
Hula. Yeah, you too. We'll see you around. You too. Yeah, you too.
myself out. I am saying I do not Scarlet. Scarlet is contributing. That's earlier than Scarlet. So get ready.
Mic check, 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3, mic check, mic check.
It'd be nice to see just a live shot. So I can send it to Dr. Besson.
All right, we are ready to check stage sound, so they're gonna start playing a song for us. Okay, hold, good. Can we get more piano in the monitor, please? Can we get a little bass in the monitors as well, please? That's perfect, thank you.
But we will be good to go momentarily.
They are sound checking. Can we sort of check in with them since it's like you're guiding them?
Professor, my good friend, can you hear me, brother? Well, it looks like he can hear me. I can't hear the professor just yet. Don't worry, Professor, we haven't started officially just yet, but we're about to start rocking and rolling. Just want to let you know that, oh, Professor, say something. We're trying to pick up your sound.
Oh, testing. 2, 3.
Okay. You got some cheers just off of the testing 1, 2, 3s. Imagine when you really start talking.
Oh, can you hear me all right now? Can you hear me all right?
I think we got him okay. Is that right, Josh?
Is that all right?
Okay, no, I think we got you, Professor. I think we got you. Okay. We're finna let it swing in just a minute here, Professor. You stand on by. Stand by. Okay.
Hey, how you doing, my brother?
I'm doing very well. I'm doing very well. We're just here getting the stage set up. This is a funny way to have a conversation. I've always looked up to you, Professor, but it's very literal right now. With you up here on the screen. See, now I'm doing crowd work while we getting ready to go. Okay, but stand by for about 5 minutes, Professor. Then we're gonna rock and roll.
Oh, wonderful, wonderful.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Okay, okay.
Thank you, thank you.
All right, it looks like it says 8:30 on the clock that is ticking down. What did I just drop? We can't be dropping microphones, y'all. That ain't the way to start it off. Okay, we're turning the lights down. We are at the Braver Angels National Convention in Philadelphia, the 250th anniversary of this great republic. And if we are a great people, it is because we are a good people. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Jazz, the Blues, and the Omni-American Dream. And before we get too far along, I want to take a moment to say a little bit about what this event is about. You see, there is a tradition, the jazz and blues idiom tradition, the jazz and blues wisdom tradition. It comes from a great people who have been oppressed and suffered, but then again, oppression and suffering and struggling is a part of experience for all of our people in this country, and yet from that history comes a mighty musical tradition which serves as a powerful and profound metaphor for American culture and American democracy across races, across tribes, and across regions, and we're about to learn a little bit more about that tonight. Joined as we are by my good friend and brother Greg Thomas, the Omni-American Future Project, Jacob Roundtree, Johns Hopkins University, Heather Blakely of Root Quarterly Magazine, and of course, the esteemed, the estimable, the venerable, Professor Cornell West joining us up on the screen. Round of applause to Professor West. Professor, like I said, Professor, I've always looked up to you, but right now it is in a very literal sense. This is a very interesting dynamic. But before we go any further, I just want to invite the band to say a little bit by way of introduction, first tossing the ball to my brother Adam. Adam, you got a mic? Well, let's get the man a microphone. Tell us a little bit about who we got on stage blessing us with the melody and the rhythm, and a little bit about the jazz scene in Philadelphia, if you can take just a quick minute, brother.
Good evening, everybody. My name is Adam Falk. I'm here on piano. I have my good friend here, Paul Geis, on trumpet, and Rodrigo.
That's right.
Pacharlo on bass. And thank you. We're very happy to be here and partaking in this and sharing, our contribution on the jazz scene here in Philadelphia, which is so rich and historic. It always has been traditionally. Talking a little bit earlier, saying quiet as it's kept, I believe Philadelphia is one of the greatest training grounds for musicians and the arts in general in the world. And quietly has helped set the bar musically and artistically around the world, and continues to forever. Household names that we all know and love have come here to Philly and handpicked their musicians and their band members, going all the way back to Art Blakey and the Jazz Messengers, Miles Davis, fast forwarding to, you had the sound of Philadelphia during the 70s, 60s, and 70s. Fast forward to today, you have groups like, the Roots and Jill Scott. And,
yes, sir.
And the tradition continues. And so it's a pleasure to be able to, contribute our little slice, to the tradition. So thank you.
There you go, brother. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. And so while we're on the subject of great and beautiful traditions, why don't we start us off with an iconic selection from the jazz tradition. If you could drop a little bit of that classic Miles Davis tune on us, So What? I think we would be in for a treat. Buckle up, ladies and gentlemen. It's time to hear some jazz. Here for the band, ladies and gentlemen. And now we're going to take you into some soulful reflections, hearing the words of one of the great thinkers and authors of the jazz blues wisdom tradition. Words from a man named Ralph Ellison, who we will learn a little bit more about as we proceed. Heather, Jacob?
Thank you. The section.
Treat us to some words.
Yeah, so the section of this part of the performance is called The Crisis of American Identity. I'll read some words from Ralph Ellison. Americans tend to focus on the diverse parts of their culture rather than on its complex and pluralistic wholeness. It would seem that for many, our cultural diversity is as indigestible as the concept of democracy in which it is grounded.
The way home we seek is that condition of man's being at home in the world, which is called love, and which we term democracy.
Democracy is, or should be, the most disinterested form of love. I'll say that again. Democracy is, or should be, the most disinterested form of love.
Brother Greg, Professor West, we just heard a little bit from the great Ralph Ellison. Ground us, if you would, Brother Thomas, in just who Ralph Ellison was and what is his significance in this conversation.
Well, many of you, if not most of you, will know him as the author of the classic American novel, Invisible Man, which in 1953 he won the National Book Award. He was the first Black American to win that award. But he was also one of the great essayists and overall writers of the 20th century. And the last quote that Jacob read is one of particular interest to our very special guest, Professor Cornel West. So I have a lot more to say, but I think it's time for us to hear from the esteemed Professor West.
Well, my dear brother Thomas, I thank you for that segue and introduction, and I do want to salute my dear brother John Wood Jr., who I have such deep respect for and a dear love. And of course, I want to salute my dear brother Murray Giles, who's the visionary leader of Braver Angels. I'll first just have to apologize because I couldn't hear the music played by Brother Adam and the others, and like the late Beethoven, I could imagine the notes played, but I couldn't hear anything. And
It was even better than it looked, Professor.
I know. I could just feel the sound just coming from those instruments. I must say, and I remember Pee Wee Ellis, who was the head musical director for James Brown. You know, when he wrote Cold Sweat, he said those first two notes, so what, were the notes I used for Cold Sweat. So, da-na, da-na. I said, ooh, there's a connection between Miles Davis and the James Brown band, the JBs, is fascinating. And I think it has everything to do with the profound insights of Ralph Waldo Ellison. Very important. His father named him after the greatest American man of letters, who was Ralph Waldo Emerson. And Ellison understood he had to ground himself in literary greatness and artistic excellence, which meant that on the one hand, he ground himself in Melville and Emerson and Faulkner, as well as Langston Hughes and Gwendolyn Brooks, but he would also acknowledge the greatest, not just American tradition, but for me, the greatest modern tradition of artistic genius, spiritual fortitude, and moral courage, which is the Black musical tradition that provides a profound conception of what it means to be human. So it gets beneath, much deeper than skin pigmentation and region and even nation and sexual orientation. It's about our common humanity. And that has to do with our character formation, our soul craft, what forms of integrity, honesty, decency, courage, compassion, humility go into the making of who we are. And for many of us, the highest form of soul craft is love when it comes to interpersonal and personal relations. But democracy is the highest form of statecraft. And statecraft and soulcraft are inseparable. That's what civic virtues are about. Civic courage, civic humanity, civic friendship, or even civic love with a little funk shot through.
There you go. There you go. Well, y'all can give an applause. Round of applause for the poetic professor. Now, I do think that we are in an age, Professor, and to my esteemed panelists here, I do think that we are in an age where it is so difficult for us to transcend the differences in our politics, because the differences in our politics amount to distinctions in our identity. In other words, we identify ourselves in opposition to one another, unable to see the humanity that we share. But Brother Greg, on that very point, I just want to pull us back to that key line that you threw at the professor. Democracy is the most disinterested form of love. Against the backdrop of the identity crisis of American society, how are we supposed to understand the significance of democracy in relation to love as a power that can allow us to transcend identity?
Well, oftentimes we think about love in a personal way.
Yeah.
If you're talking about a disinterested form of love, we're talking about one that transcends just the personal, and it is unbiased. We're gathered here to inhabit and embody courageous citizenship, no matter what political stripe we have. And we can do that if we can agree that there are certain fundamental values and principles that we share in common as Americans, based on those very documents that was talked about in the earlier session right before. But what gets in the way are the differences. The first quote that Ellison read was like, the things that, from race to political differences and many more things, get in the way of us looking at what unifies us. And that's the thing when we talk about disinterested form of love. This is something that it goes beyond just the personal, and it goes to what we share as humans, as Professor West said, but particularly as Americans.
Amen. Well, we start here on the question of identity, and I want y'all to follow along, because there's going to be a progression in the arc and theme of the conversation that, in a sense, maps on to the music, because the blues is something that gives life and gives rise to jazz, and just the way that identity and culture gives rise to the complex polyphonic that is the music of American democracy. Before we get to a little further down the road on those themes, I do want to throw it back to brothers Adam, Paul, and Ron Reville to take us down a little journey with the St. Louis Blues.
Thank
They told me y'all could play, but they didn't tell me y'all could really play. That is real.
They're from Philly, what you want?
That's right. Philly represented. There is soul in that horn, to be sure. Okay. But speaking of soul, we've got some more soulful reflections to come to this time. from that great and eminent mind by the name of Albert Murray, who coined the phrase that brings us together in this context, the Omni-Americans. Lay it on us.
So it's Albert Murray on the left with his friend and compatriot Ralph Ellison on the right, and they both went to Tuskegee in the 30s. That's where they first met, and they were friends for many, many decades, and they share so many themes and interests in common, which is why we're sharing both of them.
And we're going to get some more personal reflections from both Greg and the professor on these gentlemen, Mr. Murray as well. But Heather, go ahead, take us away.
Indeed. For all their traditional antagonisms and obvious differences, the so-called black and so-called white people of the United States resemble nobody so much in the world as they resemble each other. He also had some funny things to say about women, too. He thought American women were just like Amazons that Europeans were going to be like, super worried about.
Something to it.
Albert Murray defined the blues idiom as an attitude of affirmation in the face of difficulty, of improvisation in the face of challenge. It means that you acknowledge that life is a low down, dirty shame, yet confront that fact with perseverance, with humor, and above all, with elegance.
The blues idiom, Murray goes on to say, is part of the existential equipment that we Americans inherited from our captive ancestors. There's a richness in the Negro response to adversity. We invented the blues, good time music, not psychoanalysis. Because you invent what you need. And when I say our captive ancestors, I'm talking to all Americans. The blues is white Americans' heritage too. That's why they can identify with something that is so idiomatically down-home brown skin as jazz.
The blues idiom represents the most comprehensive and most profound assimilation. Indeed, the blues idiom provides what American cultural historian Constance Twerk called emblems for a pioneer people who require resilience as a prime trait.
When the Negro musician or dancer swings the blues, he is making an affirmative and hence exemplary and heroic response to the human condition. He is confronting, acknowledging, and contending with the infernal absurdities and ever-impending frustrations inherent in the nature of all existence by playing with the possibilities that are also there. Thus, does the blues man become the humanizer of chaos. And thus, does the dance beat improvisation of experience in the blues idiom become survival technique, an aesthetic equipment for living.
Heroism, which is, among other things, another word for self-reliance, is not only the indispensable prerequisite for productive citizenship in an open society. It is also that without no individual or community can remain free.
Amen. I tasted some seasoning in those rhetorical renditions of this vernacular. Brother Greg, I don't want to get so biographical with respect to Murray that we lose space for a conversation about the metaphorical significance of the blues, but I do want to hear you reflect on the man a little bit. You were his student and his pupil, and he is a man who looms large in this tradition. What do we need to know about Albert Murray?
Well, he was born in Alabama in 1916. Ellison was born in Oklahoma in 1913. And he grew up in the midst of deep segregation, the Depression, but he wrote about what he called antagonistic cooperation in Alabama. He said that he less looked at the statistics and the sociological surveys that talk about the actual predicament of his people than the metaphors that could be used to say, well, what are you going to do about it? And how do you feel about it? He says that he never considered himself a victim. He always considered himself the hero who would end up with the fairy tale princess. And he did. He was married to Moselle Murray for like over 60 years. So he was a mentor of mine, a mentor of Wynton Marsalis, and he's someone who Professor West also knew. And that picture that you saw of Ellison and Murray, that was at Harvard in 1973 or 74 at a conference on Alain Locke, the father of the Harlem Renaissance. And Professor West was an undergraduate at Harvard at the time, and he was in the audience. So let's hear what he has to say about the great Albert Murray.
Amen. Professor, would love to get your reflections on Brother Murray, who we know you knew well and robustly wrestled with and loved and contended with, but to do so in a way that also segues us into an understanding from your lips of the metaphorical significance of the blues as we think about the arc of the American experiment, if you will. So take that as you will.
Yes, well, I do want to say that I was able to hear that second.
Oh, you were? Oh, good, because I was over here feeling bad about you, Professor.
Good. I want to say to my brothers and musicians, y'all put a smile on W.C. Handy and Bessie Smith's face from great sound. And I say that as a segue into these two towering figures. I mean, you see, for me, both Albert Murray, who I had many occasions to debate with and learn from, and Ralph Ellison, who I met on many occasions, didn't get a chance to know him that well, but always learned from him. He's pushing me pushing him. That what brought us together was a recognition that we come from a tradition in which the human identity, and let's define identity. Identity is the human desire for protection, association, and recognition. Everybody needs recognition. Everybody needs protection. Everybody needs association, but there's a spiritual and moral dimension to identity that makes it profoundly a human identity. And Murray and Ellison, as well as blues and jazz and the best of ways of being in the world, proceeding from chocolate sides of town, of those who decided not to form black versions of the Ku Klux Klan because we didn't want to respond with hatred to hatred. We didn't want to respond to terror with terror. We didn't want to respond to trauma with trauma. No, the blues is a tradition in which it encounters catastrophe, it expresses it lyrically, it transmutes and transfigures it not just into a sound, but a part of a way of life. Duke Ellington said black people have made dissonance a way of life, so that the blues and swing and catastrophe go hand in hand to a way of life in which love and integrity and style and character play a role, but always imperfect, always fallible. We crack vessels just trying to love our crooked neighbors with our crooked hearts. Listen to this blue note.
Amen, Professor. Amen. Oh man, it is a treat to listen to, Professor. And I imagine that for many of us, when we listen to music, sometimes we listen to music as if we're eating fast food. We take in empty calories, we don't think about it too much. But the blues tradition is something that emanates from a deep place in the soul, moving from darkness to light. And that is something that we can all relate to as human beings, passing through the pathos of the American experience and the human experience. And the one other thing I'll layer on top of that before passing it back to you, Brother Greg, is just the fact that identity means so much in politics these days. We talk about racial identity, we talk about religious identity, and identity is important. But then we get really shallow when it comes to the question of human identity. And that is part of the understanding that the blues jazz tradition of Albert Murray, Ralph Ellison, and Cornel West, among many great others, Brother Greg Thomas included, gives us some texture and some depth with respect to. And so with that, I want to pass it back to Brother Greg.
Well, let's relate it to what we heard, okay? Professor West mentioned that W.C. Handy, who really codified the blues in the early part of the 20th century. When they play together, notice that each have a role. They each have their own function. But there are moments when someone stepped out to take a solo while the other supported. That's what we need to do. We need to listen as deeply as blues and jazz musicians do, so that you can respond in a way to both support and challenge. I mentioned antagonistic cooperation. It's a dynamic, a polarity of both support and challenge, and we need to do that with and for each other so that we can raise the level of our democracy. And to do that, it definitely takes courage. And that's one of the themes, of course, of our convention.
Courageous citizenship, that's right. There's no heroism without courage. And of course, that is the theme of Braver Angels, not to mention this greater American story. Ray, would you mind telling us just what Omni-American refers to? Because we are here in a panel titled The Omni-American Dream, a little bit of original phraseology from myself with the dream part, but the Omni-American idea is core and foundational to the Murray legacy and to the body of ideas that brings us here.
Absolutely. That was the title of his first book, published in 1970, The Omni-Americans. And it refers to the fact that we are more than just our tribal or ethnic or religious or so-called racial identity, that we share in common an American identity that is above and beyond that, grounded in what? Our American founding, what Ellison calls sacred documents, the Declaration of Independence, the Constitution, the Bill of Rights. These are sacred documents that form the foundation of our values and the cultural meanings that we share in common, and the music actually reflects that also. So Omni-Americans is not a singular identity, it is a composite identity. Ellison mentioned how it's our complex, pluralistic identity that is, kind of afraid of it, because it's like, well, what are we? Well, we are, as the young people when I was growing up said, we're all that. We share all these various elements in common, and foundational to it, from a blues and jazz perspective, is a Black American tradition, what he's been alluding to as a blues idiom wisdom tradition, but it's something that we all share. So it's not just one group holding on to it. Once an art form like blues, like jazz, been created, it becomes a gift to the world. Italians created opera, but they don't own it. We all own it. It's the same with blues and jazz.
Well stated, poetically said. Well, I think I would just sort of layer on top of that the distinct power in an understanding of American identity that is able to accept the fact that we have historically had tragedy and conflict at each other's hands. Our different groups of Americans in a context in which injustice and inequality is a reality of American history has produced great experiences of trauma and heartbreak and pain, such as the blues ministers do. And yet, in overcoming the tragedy of life, we develop virtues that make us more and more akin to one another, whether or not we are the descendants of settlers, slaves, or immigrants to Ellis Island. We, all of us, venture through this pathos and experience that transformation that the blues at its best calls us towards in the face of the tragedy of life. And so, moving on through the music and through the story here, we're going to move to a place of rhythm and joy with a rendition of a song that I know the good professor will know well. It don't mean a thing if it ain't got that swing, by the great and legendary Duke Ellington. Adam, take us away. Paul and Rodrigo.
Yeah.
Y'all are a blessing to the eardrums, and you're making Philly proud. Man, I can't get enough. But we do have some more by way of our scholarly reflections here. Now, this time, we're going to hear some words from the late, great Stanley Crouch, a man who is known to some for his conservative political commentary, but who also is an extraordinary poet and a man who made immense contributions to this line of thought and wisdom and the jazz blues idiom tradition here. And so, Heather Jacob, treat us to some Stanley.
Okay, right quick.
Oh, yeah.
I'm sorry. Murray, his hero, Duke Ellington, who wrote that song. Murray with Duke Ellington and Louis Armstrong, his two heroes, right behind him. And
Man
now,
had a great smile, didn't he?
Huh?
Man had a great smile, didn't he?
Oh, yes, he did. And now, to Stanley Crouch.
Okay.
The blues have much to do with the vision of the Constitution. The Constitution, like the blues singer, is willing to publicly take apart his own shortcomings, perceives human beings as neither demons nor angels, but some mysterious combination of both.
The success of jazz is a victory for democracy and a symbol of the aesthetic dignity that performers can achieve.
The demands on and the respect for the individual in the jazz band put democracy into aesthetic action. Each performer must bring technical skill, imagination, and the ability to create coherent statements through improvised interplay with the rest of the musicians.
Jazz is the product of a down-home aristocracy of men and women whose origins cut across class and caste. In no way does their rising to artistic prominence from the bottom, middle, or top of the social strata on the steam of their own individual talents and wills conflict with the collective concerns of the music. By doing so, they actually enhance our understanding of the music's democratic richness.
Just as in American democracy, jazz is an art in which improvisation declares an aesthetic rejection of the preconceptions that stifle individual and collective invention.
Thank you, ma'am. And thank you both for your soulful readings and treatment of the material. You know, Professor, tomorrow, just so happens I'm going to be at noon speaking. I guess I'm plugging my session tomorrow, but at noon I'm speaking to Brother Yuval Levin of the American Enterprise Institute, who wrote a book called American Covenant. And a little spoiler for folks who are interested in that text, but a big part of what he talks about with respect to the Constitution is the idea that the Constitution is not just a political, not just a document of law or legislation, but also suggests the spirit of a way of being in a democratic society and ethos in which we must reckon with our own limited appreciation of what's true in deference to the fact that in collaboration, even if it be antagonistic with others, we are in a multi-part conversation where together we reason and challenge each other towards a better way of governing our nation and ourselves. And I give that to you as a little bit of a preamble, Professor, for this question. Is democracy only a static way of conducting a government, or is there something alive and communal and creative in it that comes through in the words of Brother Crouch and that comes alive for us when we think about democracy through the prism of jazz?
Boy, these rich questions.
I try to make it simple for you, Professor.
I want to salute my sister and brother for being so soulful in their readings of these texts, because see, in the end, when you think of the United States of America against the backdrop of human history, most of human history is the history of organized greed and weaponized hatred, institutionalized cruelty, and routinized indifference toward the weak. That's most of human history. And the American Revolution was an attempt to interrupt that. Now, of course, there would be forms of organized greed and weaponized hatred with indigenous people, the Empire of Liberty on the one hand, and then the savages that they were characterized. You got barbaric slavery shot through. Yes, those are the contradictions and incongruities that are shot through not just America, but any social regime, including our own selves. We have to deal with our contradictions these days, our incongruities these days. But the vision, and it goes for me, not just in terms of democracy, though, brother, because our founding fathers were not Democrats. They had deep suspicion of the demos because they knew the demos can be as tyrannical as any king, as any monarch. There was a tyranny of majority when it came to enslaved folk, Jim Crow folk. The majority of our white brothers and sisters would have voted to keep blacks subordinated. So the majority in and of itself doesn't have moral and spiritual value. No, they have to undergo a maturation and cultivation so that they're willing to subordinate themselves to a public good bigger than their own personal, tribal, narrow interests. And so in the end, I would want to argue, and this is what jazz I think is so very important. They asked Miles Davis, what is jazz? He said, Louis Armstrong and Charlie Parker dropped the mic. Well, what did he have in mind? It's the examples. You can have the best words on paper, but if you don't have civic courage, if you don't have civic friendship, if you don't have exemplars of integrity, honesty, and decency, you're going to miss out on the best of any social experiment, which is to say, you're going to lose your democracy. And so it's the examples. How do we exemplify it? And we become virtuosic. We become exemplars of virtuosity. In jazz, the great figures are figures who exemplify virtuosity. That's part of the artistic hierarchy given the democratic character of the art. We all lift our voices. We're not just echoes. We have to find our voice. That takes tremendous discipline, homework, struggle, contestation. Brother John knows that from his marvelous mother and father, both of them rooted in the rich black musical tradition in their own distinctive ways. But at the same time, if we don't exemplify it, pass it on to the younger generation, all the nostalgia about democracy, about constitutional Republican status is empty. Sounding brass is tinkling cymbal. We need examples, not just as individuals in our institutions. That's why Braver Angels is so very important. Amen. Let's see the examples, always fallible and fallen, but strong enough to convince a younger generation to pick up the bloodstained banner of democracy and bear witness.
Amen. Amen. Powerful statement. Powerful statement. Powerful statement. I mean, Brother Greg, part of what the good professor is pointing to is the inextricable relationship between virtue and the actual conduct of democratic society. Now, the word democracy has undergone a long and sort of complex sort of evolution as a term of understanding. There's majoritarian democracy, which Professor West is right. Our founding fathers, the founding fathers who authored the Constitution, were not majoritarian Democrats. There is this idea of liberal democracy that protects the rights of the individual and minority. But, more important than that, I think John Adams made the point that, what form of government do we have? Well, no, that was Franklin. Republican, you can keep it. What Adams said was that our form of government is suitable to a moral, he might have even used the term religious people, wholly inadequate to any other. All of that pointing back to the idea that it's not just the abstract system that matters, it's the content and integrity of the human character and the human soul. So bring it back around, Brother Greg, to the jazz foundation here. What is Stanley telling us about the way in which the Constitution and our democratic society comes alive, right, through the moral musical metaphor of jazz?
Well, one of the things about Stanley, who was a good friend of mine, and it was Stanley who introduced Wynton Marsalis to Albert Murray, by the way. And it was Wynton Marsalis, Stanley Crouch, and Albert Murray who helped found Jazz at Lincoln Center, which is the largest jazz institution in the world and is built on the pillars of Murray's ideas. So I think it's very important to know that. Well, Stanley, one of the things he said in there, he says that the founders of our nation as flawed as they were, they knew that our human reality, that you have a combination of both some angelic, the better, angels of our nature, and you also have what you call demonic. Ellison said that he thinks that the terrible, if I get this quote right, that our reality is both a combination of, I'll paraphrase, the beautiful and the terrible. These things are real. We're not living in some type of utopia or some type of dreamland of unreality. We know that the blues is real, and what Murray called the blues as such is real. But the music, again, you all know the relationship between democracy and the Constitution. The music points to it. You mentioned liberal democracy and making sure the individual is taken care of. Well, the individual voice in jazz, they call it your sound. When you're coming up, you have to learn how to play by imitating other greats. But what do you have to say? So that individual voice, but it's individual voice within the context of a collective. That's what we're talking about here in this country and what's needed to be passed on to the next generation. Express, know yourself, that old saying, know thyself, express yourself, fulfill yourself, but do it in concert with others who are trying to elevate our system and our very souls. So I'm riffing kind of extemporaneously on.
You ain't gotta apologize.
On Stanley, but I'm going to take prerogative here.
Please.
I just have a feeling that Jacob wants to say something. So I want to pass the mic to Jacob. I'm not even going to look at him. I'm just feeling it. So, if you want to say something, man, please share.
Well, thank you.
Jacob is our driving force behind how we got up on this stage to begin with and whatnot. So he's been laying back, handling the readings and whatnot. But we're going to make you stand in the spotlight for a second, brother.
Well, when you got such
Professor
great,
Roundtree.
Thank you very much. When you got such great speakers as John and Greg and Cornell, you want to sit back and just listen. And then you got this band here who is just blowing my mind, So, but I think the band's performance and the conversation that we've had today, exemplifies precisely what is achieved when you live democracy in the form of jazz, right? And so all that spiritual energy that you're feeling when you're listening to the jazz performance, when you listen to Cornell, it's preached to you, that is the energy that is generated when we do democracy right. Amen. When we listen to each other, when we internalize each other's brilliance and wisdom, and also challenge the failures and the fallibilities of others, right? And we also don't just resign from life when you encounter challenges and trauma. Instead, you take it as an opportunity to cultivate yourself, to achieve a higher form of excellence and existence. And then, when we're doing that and we're playing off of each other and we're improvising in the face of challenges, we become a richer and more powerful republic. And we get to wake up every day and say, damn, I love living in this country. I love my fellow citizens, right? And when's the last time you felt that? So I think what we saw today is exemplary in that form.
Amen.
Amen. Man, brother Gray, I told you not to let Jacob upstage me, man. You ain't listening to nothing I said backstage. Well, and Brother Jake, man, I appreciate the emphasis on love. We're coming towards the very close of our conversation. Now, stick around because we got something for dessert coming up after that. But we're coming to the close of our conversation. I'm glad you brought in the notes on love. I would be remiss, Professor, if I did not just simply say that my moral imagination always takes me to the vision of the beloved community that harkens back to the life and legacy and philosophy of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. And it does seem to me that a democracy and a civil society that is as good as its most inspired music is one that allows us to love one another as we love ourselves. And yet that is a challenging project in the face of hatred, contempt, prejudice, injustice, inequality, and also just a sheer misunderstanding of one another as human beings that so plagues our society, Professor. And so I just want to give it to you for a 1 or 2 minute close here. How can we pursue a society that is as good as the best in our music and the best in ourselves here as we kick off the Braver Angels Convention?
Yeah, I was just reflecting on Brother Jacob and thinking about that 32nd chapter of Genesis, where Jacob, of course, is struggling with an angel of death in the midnight hour, wounded and bruised and scarred in such a profound way, but still able to generate new forms of vitality and vibrancy and energy with new vision, coming up with a whole new name. That's called Israel, which means God wrestler. But God wrestler means what? All of us have to wrestle with the forms of transcendence so that none of us fall into static idolatry. We end up having allegiance to tribal and clannish and narrow idols rather than something bigger than all of us, like truth, like goodness, like beauty. I'm a Christian, and the holy as well. And it pulls out the best in us. And that's what the music does at its best. We're in John Coltrane City. This is a love supreme. This is ascension. This is giant step. Pull the best out of us, given the worst that is always in us, so that we can empower each other, but not in any way think that we can create paradise on earth. No, we're trying to leave the world a little better than we found it. That's why the great Tennessee Williams, and with that American Hamlet who was Blanche in Streetcar Named Desire, with jazz as a major character in that canonical play, named his first collection of plays American Blues, because he's vanilla as a Norwegian in a stereotypical way, but he's a blues man too. It's a human thing all the way down.
Amen, brother. Amen, Professor. Professor, we love you. One more round of applause for the great Professor Cornel West. All right, now, ladies and gentlemen, we are not quite done because, as a matter of fact, this is a participatory exercise.
That's right.
We still got a little music coming up. I'm going to toss it over to my good sister, my beautiful vanilla sister, Heather Blakesley, to take us into the next part of our musical experience. Oh, he's around. I think. Was that?
So when I was a weird little kid growing up in central Pennsylvania, I listened to a lot of music, and I really gravitated to blues music. I thought it was the most beautiful thing I'd ever heard, and there's not a lot of 16-year-old girls listening to Ma Rainey, but I was, and that was a gateway drug into other people like Nina Simone, and she was a gateway drug into other people like Alice Coltrane, who was a gateway drug to the rest of the universe. She's up there with Sun Ra somewhere, right? But the song that we want to play with you guys is Lean on Me by Bill Withers. And you all know this, and so John and I are going to sing the little first parts of this, but then we're going to have you sing with us, okay? And I wore my CBGB's shirt, and since musicians, you can't tell them what to do, of course CBGB's was country, bluegrass, and blues, but then the punks took over, and so the Ramones were like, no, this is what we're doing now here at this club. So it's all American music. It's all American music, and we're really excited that you guys are going to sing this song with us.
Yeah, he'll be coming up. Sit down. He's good. Even my man's right here. Yeah. That's a surprise. Oh, you are? Okay.
We are
that you'll understand. We all need somebody to lean on.
Lean on me
Okay,
when
now we
you're
are.
not strong, and I'll be your friend. I'll help you carry on.
Sing along if you know.
It won't be long till I'm gonna need somebody to lean on.
Okay, ladies and gentlemen, keep on singing along if you know the words. I'm about to call up a very special man here. Brother Brent Ward, do you want to take the stage and join us a little bit? This brother here has got some real vocal alacrity. I'm just an amateur trying to play along. But Brent, do we have a microphone for you, man?
Thanks for having me.
Well, take the lead, brother. Take the lead. Yes, sir. Love this man. Brave Angels has got an incredible music community, y'all. So I encourage people to be a part of it. But Brent, why don't you go ahead and advertise that for us?
You just call Omni Brother when you need a hand.
Come on, folks.
We all need somebody to lean on. I just might have a problem that you'll understand. We all need somebody to lean on. Lean on me when you're not strong, and I'll be your friend. I'll help you carry on, for it won't be long till I'm gonna need somebody to lean on. If there is a load you have to bear that you can't carry, I'm right up the road. I'll share your load if you just call me. Just call me. Call me. Just call me. Just call me. Call me. Call me. Call me.
Thank you very
Thank
much,
you
ladies
again
and
to our
gentlemen.
amazing band. Thank you again to our amazing band.
One more time. Here for the band.
We're so glad that you guys are here. That song is obviously about asking for what you need and being vulnerable, and that is also courageous. So I really look forward to meeting more of you at the conference. Thank you for being in Philly, and thank you for appreciating our musicians here. We appreciate it.
Amen. Good night, y'all. Let's get some sleep, or not. You know, up to you. Well, it's after there, so